The New Day call Randy Orton a groupie. Back on the October 12, 2015 episode of WWE Raw at the Allstate Arena in Chicago, Dean Ambrose and Randy Orton were backstage trying to hash out their problems with the Wyatt family, while barely hiding their issues with each other. This is when the New Day barged in. As usual, they came in loud, proud, and full of jokes, claiming they were the best faction in WWE history. They took playful jabs at both guys, but they really zeroed in on Orton, comparing themselves to the Authority, Evolution, and Legacy before calling Orton just a groupie. The banter was so ridiculous that even Orton cracked a smile and broke character on live TV. R-Truth takes himself out before Big Show can. On December 28, 2015, during the final Raw of the year at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, The Miz was hosting his over-the-top year-in-review spectacular edition of Miz TV. Superstars came out one after another to talk about their New Year's goals, until Big Show showed up and made it clear he wasn't in the mood for talking. He started clearing the ring, taking out everyone in sight, but when it came time for R-Truth, instead of fighting back, Truth begged for mercy, then completely shocked the crowd by knocking himself out with his own KO punch before Show could even touch him. Show couldn't help but laugh out loud. It was one of those moments where comedy met perfect timing. Brock Lesnar's boombox briefcase. On May 27, 2019, Raw at the Sprint Center in Kansas City gave us a side of Brock Lesnar we almost never see. Comedy Brock. After winning the 2019 Money in the Bank match, Lesnar came out with the briefcase customized to look like a giant boombox. He held it on his shoulder, bobbing his head to the beat, dancing to the entrance themes of both Kofi Kingston and Seth Rollins. The Brock Party was born, and it was so unexpected and hilarious that even Seth Rollins started cracking up. Paul Heyman jamming out with some air guitar only made it funnier. Who knew the Beast had rhythm? Santino Marella makes Stone Cold lose it. On November 5, 2007, during an episode of Raw, Santino Marella got his wish: to meet Stone Cold Steve Austin in person. Santino had been trashing Austin all week for starring in The Condemned, even doing a ridiculous impression of him on TV. But when the real Texas Rattlesnake showed up, things took a hilarious turn. Santino doubled down on the jokes and mocked Austin's catchphrases to his face, all while Austin tried his best not to laugh. You could see the smirks slipping through. Eventually, Austin put an end to the comedy with a stunner, but it was obvious he enjoyed every second of it. Hogan calls it the Silverdome, everyone breaks. WrestleMania 30 kicked off in legendary fashion on April 6, 2014 at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, but not before Hulk Hogan mistakenly welcomed the crowd to the Silverdome. The crowd roared with laughter, and before Hogan could recover, Stone Cold Steve Austin jumped in and started poking fun.
Good to be back here at the Silverdome.
The Rock joined soon after, and by then, all three legends were laughing, clinking beer cans, and soaking in the moment. The segment was meant to be nostalgic, but that slip-up made it unforgettable. Vince McMahon's Spinaroonie breaks The Undertaker. After the August 12, 2002 episode of Raw went off the air at the Key Arena in Seattle, fans got a little bonus segment. One by one, wrestlers like Booker T, The Rock, Triple H, and Goldust started busting out Spinaroonies. But the real mission? Getting The Undertaker to do one. Even as the American badass, Taker was notoriously serious about protecting his character, but when Vince McMahon himself got in the ring and attempted a Spinaroonie, Taker couldn't help it, and he broke into a grin. He never did the move, but that smile said it all. William Regal's surprise throwback. On November 10, 2011, during an episode of WWE Superstars in his home country of England, William Regal returned for a match against his protege, Daniel Bryan. Right before their bout, the production crew decided to have a little fun at Regal's expense by playing his old Real Man's Man theme song. The entire arena cracked up, and so did Regal. He couldn't help laughing, along with Bryan and even referee Mike Chioda. It was a great callback, and Regal proved once again he's always game for a good rib. Vince and Dude love dance, while Austin watches in disbelief. On May 4, 1998, the Raw is War gave us one of the weirdest and funniest visuals ever, after Mick Foley beat Terry Funk to become the #1 contender. One contender, Vince McMahon, came out and actually danced with Foley, who was now fully back in Dude Love mode, along with his Dudettes. Stone Cold Steve Austin stood at the top of the ramp, watching in complete disbelief. You could see the laughter creeping in as Vince busted out the cringiest dance moves imaginable. Even Jim Ross on commentary couldn't believe what he was seeing. Foley finally flips the catchphrase on The Rock. On July 3, 2000, during Raw is War in Orlando, Mick Foley finally got to turn the tables on The Rock. As commissioner, Foley asked The Rock how it felt to be a 5-time WWE champion, but before the Great One could answer, Foley cut him off with, "It doesn't matter how it makes you feel." The crowd went nuts, and even The Rock had to laugh. After years of being on the receiving end of The Rock's catchphrases, Foley nailed the delivery at just the right moment. The smirk on Dwayne's face was all the validation Mick needed. Sami Zayn and the birth of UC. On October 28, 2022, SmackDown rolled into St. Louis, and Roman Reigns opened up the segment with a Bloodline family meeting. He wanted Jey Uso and Sami Zayn to squash their beef once and for all. Things got tense, especially when Jey snapped and yelled, "I don't give a damn what the tribal chief says." Trying to defuse the situation, Sami stepped in and said Jey didn't mean it because he just hadn't been feeling very UC lately. That line absolutely broke everyone. Roman, Jey, even Solo, all of them were trying not to laugh. Roman somehow pulled it together and turned the whole UC thing into gold. A totally unscripted gem. Shayna Baszler cracks up. On the 17th August 2020 version of Raw Talk, the 24/7 title goof was chilling out behind the desk with Charlie Caruso and resident MMA badass Shayna Baszler. Suddenly, in the middle of her rant about poor company catering, Shayna was interrupted by Truth saying the fried fish was good. By the time he added, "You probably didn't put tartar sauce on it," all bets were off. Baszler couldn't maintain her menace any longer and had to hide her face from the camera so that people watching wouldn't see her laughing. This was the first time most WWE fans had seen this side to Shayna. She'd been depicted as a rough, tough, and no-nonsense submission artist on NXT since day one, and she never smiled on screen. So it was quite the surprise to see her lighten up on Raw Talk and break character. Truth got Baszler good. Mankind peels back the curtain. 1997 marked a real shift in presentation for the WWF. Gritty reality started to overtake the cartoonish gimmicks of before, and the promotion seemed more willing to peel back the curtain. Case in point, Mick Foley, still as Mankind, discussing his real-life childhood with Jim Ross. Those sit-down interviews were stunning pieces of business, and they showed a human side to the previously monstrous Mankind character.
Jimmy, there's plenty of good reasons to hate me.
Before them, Mick stayed firmly in gimmick by playing up to the tortured, psychopathic tendencies of the masked nightmare he was tasked with playing. The chats with JR changed that forever. Suddenly, fans could relate to Mankind's journey. That seemed so impossible before, but there was something so lovable about Foley's real personality. These skits were a concerted effort to make the character endearing and sympathetic for the first time. He was a wrestling fan just like everyone else. Michael Cole sheds his heel skin. Some folks will be scratching their heads and screaming, "Cole isn't a wrestler" at their screens right now. Not so fast, cause Lil Mikey has worked some matches over the years, and he was very much cast as a hated heel by the time this terrifying incident happened on the 10th of September 2012 Raw. Cole's co-commentator and rival Jerry Lawler suffered a heart attack live on air, and medics whisked the King from ringside to hospital in efforts to save his life. That left Michael all alone, and he had to think on his feet fast. Likely traumatized by what he'd seen and fearing for his friend's life, Cole ditched his heelish ways and winged his way through parts of the broadcast. He wasn't Michael Cole, heel announcer anymore. Instead, Cole broke character, showed his real-life humanity, and prayed that Lawler would pull through. WWE couldn't continue with the pair's bickering feud after that. Cole also softened his heelish approach immediately from that point on. The play-by-play man deserves immense credit for his professionalism. Jerry Lawler gets real. Lawler himself had carved his reputation as a slick-talking heel wrestler meets announcer since joining the company in 1993. His constant criticism of Bret Hart's family was the foundation of their long-running feud, and King didn't shirk confrontation behind the desk on comms either. One fateful night changed his character forever, too. At Over the Edge 1999, Owen Hart fell from the rafters into the ring. The stunt gone wrong shocked everybody, but Jim Ross and Jerry had the unfortunate task of trying to plod on with the pay-per-view regardless. Eventually, they had to stare down the camera and announce that Owen had died.
He fell from the ceiling. Let everyone know that Owen Hart has died.
This marked a first for Lawler. He wasn't the heel king here, and he wasn't going to interrupt Ross with some witty jokes or banter. Both he and his peers solemnly broke the awful news and didn't even try to retain any sense of characterization. They were real people, which was a first for Jerry in the WWF. Dean Ambrose can't act like a corpse. CM Punk, Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, WWE.com. Not many workers would laugh if a giant snake was dropped on top of them, but Dean Ambrose did. AEW's reborn mauler Jon Moxley wasn't giggling at the reptile, though. He was corpsing because of something CM Punk said when standing over him. Punk had just finished wrestling Roman Reigns in the main event of WWE's Retro Raw on January 6, 2014. He stayed inside the ring when Jake Roberts walked out to work the snake spot, and he couldn't resist having some fun. Hilariously, he said, "That snake shit on your face." Ambrose was a goner after that. He visibly smiled and laughed on camera despite selling Roberts' famed DDT. Moxley hasn't revealed in interviews since whether or not WWE management were angry with him for breaking character. It wouldn't be a surprise if they were. Dean Ambrose was an important part of the Shield's aggression, and he didn't normally giggle at pranks like a little schoolboy. R-Truth breaks Brock Lesnar. The best thing about this segment from the 13th of January 2020 Raw is the backstory. Unbeknownst to Lesnar, both R-Truth and Paul Heyman had made a bet behind the curtain that Truth wouldn't be able to make Brocky Boy laugh. Heyman would end up losing that particular wager. Truth's delusional babyface act was too much for Lesnar to take. He didn't even attempt to hide his merriment when the 24/7 champ declared himself for the Royal Rumble, found out that Brock would be involved, and then promptly undeclared. Undeclaring! In fact, Lesnar fell about the place laughing his ass off. The Beast Incarnate had done comedy before during his first WWE run, but nothing like this. Truth and Heyman's pact makes it clear that he was never scripted to giggle during the segment at all. If anything, Lesnar was supposed to stand there stoically like an agitated man mountain before blasting Truth with an F5. Roman Reigns becomes Joe. If you ever need another reason to admire the way Roman Reigns is going about his business as SmackDown's head of the table, then revisit his melancholy promo on the 22nd of October, 2018 Raw. Promo might actually be the wrong word here because he wasn't promoting anything or in character at all. The man spoke to WWE fans as Joe Anoa'i, not Roman Reigns. Joe announced that he'd been battling leukemia for most of his adult life, then said the cancer had come back again. So, in order to properly battle the disease head-on, he was vacating the Universal title and taking some time away from WWE. His words left fans in the arena stunned, and there was a huge outpouring of support on social media. Reigns literally said that he'd been brave-facing things by playing a character, but that he couldn't keep doing that much longer until he was healthy again. Roman or Joe hadn't appeared this fragile for even 1 second since debuting in the company. Triple H ditches kayfabe. That glove still fits, but it's a bit more interesting to analyze Triple H solo rather than his pals Shawn Michaels, Diesel, and Razor Ramon. They had been presented as their real selves more than once on WWF TV, or at least over-the-top versions of them. Hunter hadn't. He was Greenwich Blue Blood through and through. On 19 May 1996, Trips and his backstage cohorts came together for a group hug following a Madison Square Garden house show. There was immediate panic and uproar backstage as the foursome embraced in-ring and said their goodbyes to Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Some fans were confused too because Hunter and Diesel were heels who weren't aligned on screen with HBK and Razor. Triple H stood out the most here. His snooty heel gimmick was ironclad and he didn't deviate from it. He was also relatively new compared to the rest of the crew, so it seemed odd for some to find out that Helmsley was buddies with babyfaces like Michaels and Ramon. Hunter hit the Federation doghouse instantly. The Undertaker shoots. Someday, someone will sit down and hyperanalyze the entire lore behind The Undertaker, Kane, and Paul Bearer. It'd make for fascinating reading, especially because WWE has tinkered around with each character's history so much. Despite all that, Taker's magic has always remained, except when he comes out in Madeline workout gear and cuts a shoot promo. That's exactly what the so-called Dead Man did on the 1st June 1998 Raw. He didn't rock out wearing traditional Taker gear, and he barely even spoke in gravelly tones.
Why I'm so pissed off at Vince McMahon.
Fans instead watched in awe as a character they'd come to know as the Phenom bitched about how poorly Vince McMahon had been treating him. This was a bizarre character break. The Undertaker had spent the best part of 8 years refining his mystique and staying in gimmick during autograph signings, public media appearances, and more. Now, here he was keeping up with wrestling's increasing desire to shoot brother. It was weird. Steve Austin hits the giggles. Few in wrestling had or have a better poker face than peak-era Stone Cold. Steve Austin had mean-mugged his way through many a segment with everyone from Vince McMahon and The Rock to Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley before this unlikely moment on the 4th of May, 1998 Raw. After laying down some guest commentary for a Cactus Jack vs. Terry Funk main event, Austin entered the ring and blasted everyone he could with stunners. Then, McMahon danced out on stage with some dudettes as Mick Foley's Dude Love theme blared over the speakers. That's when Austin unthinkably corpsed. He was visibly struggling to keep his composure and stay in character when Vince hammed it up with the models on the ramp. When Foley then joined in and jived away with the group, Stone Cold threw up a half-hearted middle finger and again turned away before a big grin crept across his face. They got him good. Randy Orton reassures Shane McMahon's family. Randy Orton has often been seen as a very serious character, often portraying a heel for the majority of his career, which is why seeing him break character was a surprise. This happened in the middle of the Men's Survivor Series match in 2016 when Orton could be seen chatting away with a young fan at ringside. That fan happened to be Shane McMahon's son, who was concerned after his father had to be taken to the back in the middle of the match due to an injury. Orton was letting him know that his father was okay, taking the time to ensure he wasn't upset. Bret Hart loses it during the Montreal Screwjob. The Montreal Screwjob is something that fans are well aware of at this point.
Go down, and as a fan, it kind of blended the lines of reality and who.
With WWE ending his WWE Championship match against Shawn Michaels, despite the fact he never tapped out.
Is saying, I don't think I saw him taps.
Everything that happened in the aftermath of that was Hart's genuine reaction. Bret Hart was supposed to be a true babyface who played everything by the book, so seeing him spit in the face of Vince McMahon and sign WCW on WWE television,
big was going on.
Wow, you talk about controversy!
Was certainly out of character for him. That was something he did as an instinctive reaction because he had been legitimately screwed by WWE. Becky Lynch announces her pregnancy. Another time that a wrestler was able to cut a promo as themselves rather than portraying a specific character was when Becky Lynch announced that she would be taking time away from the business. She revealed that she was pregnant, and that led to her relinquishing the Raw Women's Championship to Asuka. It was an emotional promo, but it was also a fantastic segment. Considering the fact it took place during the empty arena shows, it brought a much-needed moment of joy to the fan base, and Lynch's delivery was tremendous. Sid wants a redo. This is one of the most infamous promo blunders in WWE history, and it came during the In Your House 2, The Lumberjacks pay-per-view on July 23, 1995. The segment involved interviewer Jim Ross, Ted DiBiase, and Psycho Sid, who was challenging WWE champion Diesel for the title in a lumberjack match. During the interview, Jim Ross first questioned Ted DiBiase about his obsession with securing the WWE championship for his million-dollar corporation, specifically through Sid. DiBiase, a seasoned talker, delivered his part with his usual charisma, emphasizing his wealth and influence. When Ross turned to Sid for his thoughts, things went off the rails. Sid, known more for his imposing physical presence, standing 6 feet 9 inches and weighing over 300 pounds, than his mic skills, struggled to articulate his response. He stumbled over his words, mixing up his lines and losing his train of thought. Visibly frustrated, Sid broke character and asked to start over, a rare and awkward moment in professional wrestling where performers are expected to power through mistakes, especially on live television. Jim Ross, quick on his feet, responded with the now iconic line, "This is live, pal."
I have a little bit of... Let me do this again.
Oh, it's live, pal.
Sorry. Anybody has any doubt?
Triple H heals miraculously. On March 28, 2010, Shawn Michaels lost a career-ending match to The Undertaker in a critically acclaimed no disqualification streak versus career match. As per the storyline stipulation, Michaels was forced to retire from in-ring competition. The March 29th Raw episode was centered around Shawn Michaels' farewell speech, a heartfelt moment where he addressed the WWE Universe, reflecting on his legendary career. This was an emotional segment, as Michaels was genuinely stepping away from wrestling. Earlier that same Raw episode, Triple H, a longtime friend and D-Generation X partner of Michaels, was involved in a separate angle. He was brutally attacked backstage by Sheamus, who struck him with a lead pipe, leaving him bloodied and unconscious. During the closing segment of Raw, when Shawn Michaels delivered his emotional farewell speech in the ring, Triple H appeared at the top of the entrance ramp to pay tribute to his friend. He should have been incapacitated, possibly hospitalized, or at the very least, selling the effects of the assault. Instead, Triple H looked perfectly fine as he was smiling, laughing, and showing no signs of the earlier attack. This moment then created what fans dubbed a kayfabe clusterfuck, which is still a part of the lingo in WWE whenever the suspension of disbelief is shattered.